Hello everyone, I'm back. We're going to do some more ceramics projects today. So what I want to show you now is the demo for how to do a coil project, how to do a coil pot, how to use the technique of coil in ceramics, and then how to do the specific project that I recommended in Google Classroom. So let's get started. All right, so first things first, I want to go ahead and tell you that on this technique, on making coils, you actually don't need to wedge. So that's kind of interesting. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move my water over here by my coffee. Hopefully I don't get them mixed up and drink the wrong one. I'm going to go ahead and make a coil for you. All right, I'm going to start by kind of patting this thing into a ball. And then I'm going to roll it out. So what we want to do is we want to roll this kind of like we did whenever we were little and we were making snakes out of Play-Doh or making turds, whatever it is you're making. So that's what we're going to do. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pull this part off. I'll use that in a minute. What I want to show you how to do is how to make a coil. So it's just like rolling that out of Play-Doh. But what we're going to do, we're going to spread our fingers a little bit as we work. And what that does is it helps us to not get lines and cracks and bumps and things like that in here. So it will make this a nice, pretty coil. Let me slow down so I can make sure you guys see what I'm doing. See how my fingers are slowly spreading out? All right, so now I've got a coil. We'll make them roughly the same width around. One thing we don't want to do, we don't want to make them too thin. This one I kind of made too thin, but I think we can still use it. So whenever you join these pieces together, you want to be able to mash them together. And when you mash them together, they're going to get thinner. And so you don't want them to be too thin, because when you mash all the pieces together, then your vessel is going to be too thin. All right, so I'm going to make a base real quick for our pot. Now, this is going to be done in slab, so I will wedge this real quick. You can tell it's a good thing I did. Let me go ahead and try to bring my piece over here real quick. I'll wedge it on this. Now this is a really small piece to wedge. Hear that bubble pop? Another thing I can do when I'm wedging something that small, sometimes I'll do it in one hand like this. And that tends to work pretty decent. All right, back to making our slab. As you saw last time, I kind of keep my hand on it at first to kind of get it in the shape I want. If you throw it straight down, you see it starts to stick to the table. It starts getting ugly. So we want to throw it at an angle. All right, so let's say this is going to be the inside of our vessel. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut out a piece that I feel is pretty even. It looks like this slab. There we go. Gets a little thinner on one side. That ought to even it out a bit. So I could, if I was really worried about it, I could make I could use something to trace and make a really nice bottom here. I'm going to go ahead and make this into another coil. Remember, with coil, I don't have to wedge. I don't know why. I guess all of that mashing it really tends to kind of get the air bubbles out for you and mix everything up. That's an ugly coil, but it doesn't matter, okay? So sometimes I get a little rusty. It's been a while since I've made coil. I like to make a few and then do everything at once. So it takes me a few minutes to get in the hang of making a really nice, pretty coil again. As you see, it can happen, and it doesn't take too long to make a coil. So if I make any more, I'll probably do them on fast forward, because I think you've got plenty of footage here to look at this. All right, so what I want to do, I want to go ahead and start making my coiled project. So I'm using, like I said, I'm using a slab here for the base. And then basically, coil is really nice because you don't have to wedge, you don't have to slip and score. And so it's a really interesting technique. And it comes out very organic a lot of times. You can take your time and make these very geometric and very precise. But I don't bother. And it takes time to do that. So to me, if I'm going to do something very geometric, a lot of times I'll use a different method, a different technique. And you'll see I'm just kind of laying these coils down here. Almost like a 3D printer, right? I'm just going around and around, building up the layer in the shape I want it. So if I want this vessel to get wider, the further it goes out, so let's do that. If I want it to taper inward, I'll take and lay these coils, I'll start laying these coils in, tapering in. If I want it to grow wider as it goes out, so I'm gonna go pretty straight up for a minute, then I'm gonna start getting wider as I go out for just a bit. And I can control that how wide I want it to be. So I just put my coil down where I want it to be. So it's almost just like a 3D printer. I'm just sitting there doing this in the shape that I want it to come out, right? And that's a really interesting way to do this. I want to go ahead and close in the insides of these some. You have to close in the inside at least, right? You got to at least close in one side. So if you like the way the coils look on the outside, you can keep that, but you have to at least close together some of the other pieces. That way it has some structural integrity. All right, you see how I can kind of just mash these together and make these really nice coils. If I want to, I can smooth it out, make it smooth as glass in there. See? But I don't have to. You know, I can keep it very expressive, and that's what I like to do. And a lot of times these it makes these little burrs when I do this. And I like to keep those because glaze gets trapped in those little burrs, and it makes it really beautiful. Because one of the great things about really heavy texture, really expressive texture on a coil pot or on a ceramic piece is that the glaze gets trapped in there. So you have different thicknesses of glaze because some of the glaze gets trapped down in a divot or a declavity of some kind, a little recess of some kind. And then it gets thicker, so it gets darker. So you get all these different values in your glaze. It looks really beautiful. And so I like to be really expressive with my ceramics. I like to be expressive with everything. Just a simple look at my portfolio, you can tell I love to be expressive. One of the other things you can do is you can use a modeling tool. So as this thing gets deeper, you may want to use a modeling tool to join these, and it makes it really easy to join these coils together. But a lot of times I like to use my hands just because I get that expressive quality. All right, I'm gonna do a little on fast forward now that I've spoke with you about the basic components of this. I might, come back in a minute and say some more. But at the moment, I think you guys understand how this works. I will say this. You remember when I was talking about pinching these pieces together? Well, if I pinch them together and I start off with, do you remember how thick my coils were? They were pretty thick. But when I start pinching them together, they get a lot thinner. So look how thin this wall is. Now, what if I do the outside? Well, if I smash the outside in, it's going to get even thinner. This is a great technique for building up really large pieces. And so, every technique has its own benefits. All right, so what I did here, I shaped my pot the way I wanted it, and then I kind of selectively left a spot that I want to leave visible as coils. And then I'm just kind of going through here and joining these coils everywhere else. And one of the things I like to do, I like to go ahead and pull up on the inside. If I'm joining all the coils at once, so if I'm not going to selectively leave some of them showing, usually what I do is I go ahead and coil, I join the inside and the outside together at one time by pulling up with my fingers on the inside and pushing down with my thumb. And that really does a really good job of joining these coils together really quickly, both on the inside and the outside at the same exact time. Sometimes I have to go back and forth, just depends. But that's what I usually do. So I've selectively marked off a little section that I want to leave as coils, have the appearance of coils. And then I'm going to join the rest of this up. Now, I like this texture that I'm getting. So I had a dirty tool, but it's leaving a really interesting texture, so I think I'll keep using it. All right, so what I want to do now, I want to kind of dig under my clay with this tool. So I'll show you a great way to use this tool. If I take it and use it, it's kind of like a spoon. We got the concave part right here, convex part right here. If I turn it up so that I can see the concave part is facing me, I can come under here and then kind of tunnel under here and make it look like this piece is over the top of the other piece, even though it's not really. All right. So this is what we got so far. I'm going to let this thing dry a little so I can come back and touch it up here and there. Do whatever I feel is necessary to finish it up. But we have a vessel that has the coils partially exposed in a selective location. You could do anything you wanted. You could have some coils over here, some coils over there. You could put all kinds of different elements into it and execute this any kind of way that you wanted. So we'll come back whenever this is dry and I'll show you the next step. Okay, here we are. The next day, I left a bag over it, just kind of cracked at the bottom so that it would dry out a little. Right now it's kind of at the leather hard stage. And so I'm just going to make a few refinements. As you can see here, I have made some modifications to the design. I tried to give it a little more rhythm here. And so I'm a lot more satisfied with this now. There are some things I can do now to mess with the shape a little, so this will move just a tiny bit. It won't move a ton. I can trim the lid. I can smooth some of the surfaces out. So one of the things I want to do, I want to take a sponge to some of the surfaces that I want smooth, kind of like the base here. And I'll go over them with a sponge to kind of soften it up and smooth it out in a lot of places. I don't care if there's a little bit of texture, but I want the pot to set evenly. Same thing for the inside. At this point, I'm taking a few of the tools and trying to define some of the coils a little more where they got smashed a little too much. I'm also trying to shore up this illusion that the outer skin of this pot is kind of growing over and setting over the top of these coils when actually they were actually not only not flush, but they were even recessed below the coils. So now I have them looking like they're going above the coils. Okay, so a few more things before I end this demo. I might do a follow-up video later to show you how it goes when it's glazed. But I will say a couple things. When I leave my bag cracked to let in air to let this dry out a little bit, if I accidentally let it dry out too much, I can always come back with a spray bottle and open my bag, mist this down a little light coating, close my bag up, and it should come back and be restored to a more workable stage. And then also, I would say that, you know, it'd be good to have a squirt bottle when you're doing ceramics. If you can get one, I got these, you know, online marketplace, real cheap, like I think a set of like 3 or 4 for next to nothing. I would also say that you don't want to over moisturize it. You don't want to put too much liquid on it, because what will happen is it'll actually turn back into a pile of goop. It'll lose the ability to stand up on its own. So you want to be careful with that. It just takes a little bit of practice. Like I said, a light coating should do just fine for trying to restore your clay. All right, that's it for this demo. I'll see you guys next time.